Imagine this. Boxing legend Mike Tyson, calm and unbothered, steps into a quiet cafe for coffee, only to face 5 angry bikers spoiling for a fight. What happens next? A jaw-dropping showdown unfolds as Tyson defends an innocent boy, proving that true strength isn't just about fists, but standing up for what's right. Will the bikers back down, or will Tyson unleash his legendary power? You won't believe how far they'll go to settle the score. Grateful to have you here. Which part of the world are you watching from? And please leave your thoughts on the message I want to convey. The city was still wrapped in the soft embrace of dawn when Mike Tyson set out for his morning run. The streets were mostly empty, save for the occasional early riser or street vendor setting up shop. The cool air filled his lungs as his steady pace carried him through the quiet urban landscape. For Tyson, this ritual was more than just exercise. It was a moment of clarity before the chaos of the day began. Years of physical conditioning had turned his body into a finely tuned instrument of efficiency and control. He didn't push himself too hard. There was no need. Every step was measured, every breath calculated. As he neared the end of his run, the scent of fresh coffee drifted through the crisp morning air, drawing his attention to a small cafe nestled at the corner of a side street. He had never been here before, but the warm glow spilling from its windows and the inviting stillness of the place made it an easy choice. Stepping inside, Tyson took in the atmosphere. The cafe was sparsely occupied, a young couple whispering to each other by the window, an elderly man reading a newspaper in the far corner, and a black boy, no older than 11, seated near the counter with an open notebook and a few school books scattered in front of him. His neatly pressed uniform suggested he was on his way to school, likely using the time to finish last-minute assignments. Tyson ordered a black coffee, keeping his cap low and his presence unobtrusive. Finding a seat in the back, he took out his phone, scrolling through unread messages and news updates, blending into the background like any ordinary customer. For a few minutes, it was exactly what he had hoped for: quiet, peaceful, and uneventful. But then, he felt it, a pair of eyes watching him. Glancing up subtly, he noticed the young boy stealing glances in his direction. His curiosity was evident, but he hesitated, unsure whether to approach. Subscribe to the channel, share the video, and write in the comments what city you were from. The boy's gaze lingered longer than most, his wide eyes betraying both recognition and uncertainty. Tyson had seen this look before, fans torn between disbelief and excitement. Offering a small, reassuring nod, he watched as the boy quickly looked down at his notebook, cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Minutes passed, and the boy seemed to gather his courage. Rising from his seat, he approached Tyson with trembling hands, clutching his notebook and a pen. His voice was small but determined as he finally spoke. "Excuse me, sir. Are you Mike Tyson?" Tyson glanced up from his phone, tilting his cap slightly as a subtle smirk played on his lips. "Me? Nah, I'm just a guy who likes coffee. But if I were Mike Tyson, I'd ask you to keep that a secret, all right?" The boy giggled nervously, his face lighting up with a mix of excitement and relief. "Okay," he whispered before hurrying back to his seat. Tyson chuckled to himself, shaking his head. It was a simple, innocent moment, one of the reasons he appreciated his fans, despite valuing solitude. But the encounter wasn't over. Moments later, the boy returned, this time with more determination etched across his face. Holding out his notebook and pen, his hands trembling slightly, he said hesitantly, "If you're really not Mike Tyson, that's okay. But if you are, could I please have your autograph?" Tyson smiled at the boy's persistence, taking the notebook and flipping to a blank page. With careful precision, he signed his name, adding a short message. To the bravest kid I've met today. Handing it back, he watched as the boy's eyes widened in disbelief and joy. Thank you, the boy exclaimed, hugging the notebook to his chest. Can we take a picture too, please? Tyson hesitated for a moment, then nodded. All right, just one picture. But you have to promise me you won't tell anyone. The boy beamed, quickly pulling out his phone. They posed for a quick photo, and the boy thanked him profusely before rushing back to his seat, staring at the autograph like it was the most precious thing in the world. Tyson sipped his coffee, amused by the encounter. It was a good way to start the morning, for now. Subscribe to the channel, share the video, and write in the comments what city you were from. For a while, everything was peaceful. The low hum of casual conversation, the soft clinking of cups against saucers, the faint music playing from the cafe speakers. The world outside was still slow to wake, and Mike Tyson allowed himself to sink into the moment, enjoying the temporary tranquility. But then, the door swung open with a loud, jarring creak, and the atmosphere shifted immediately. 5 men entered, their presence heavy and unmistakable. Leather jackets covered in patches, boots stomping against the tiled floor, tattoos winding up their arms. They were bikers, and the moment they stepped inside, the cafe's quiet ambiance vanished. The young boy, still holding his treasured notebook, froze in his seat. His earlier joy faded, replaced with unease. Tyson didn't react at first, merely observing them through the reflection in the cafe window. They scanned the room, their gazes sweeping over the customers before settling on him. One of them, a stocky man with fiery red hair, nudged his companion and pointed toward Tyson. His voice was loud and obnoxious. Hey, isn't that the big boxer? The one who thinks he's the toughest guy around? Laughter erupted from the group, echoing through the small space. Tyson kept his expression unreadable, calmly taking another sip of his coffee, pretending not to hear them. The last thing he wanted was a confrontation. A taller, more muscular biker stepped closer, sneering. Well, well, look who we've got here. Big tough fighter, huh? Bet you think you're a real hero. Tyson slowly set his coffee down, his eyes lifting to meet theirs. His voice was even and controlled. I'm just here to enjoy my coffee. No trouble. But trouble had already found him. The bikers surrounded his table, their laughter growing louder, their taunts more pointed. The leader of the group, a man with a skull tattoo on his neck, leaned in close, his voice dripping with mockery. What's the matter, Tyson? You're not so tough without your gloves and cameras, huh? Before Tyson could respond, a small but firm voice interrupted. Leave him alone. The young boy had stood up, clutching his notebook tightly. His expression was defiant, his voice unwavering, despite the fear in his eyes. The bikers turned toward him, their amusement doubling. The wiry man with a scar across his cheek sneered. Look at this little fanboy trying to protect his hero. That's cute. Another biker, a burly man with a cruel grin, reached for Tyson's coffee cup. His fingers wrapped around it, and before anyone could react, he tilted it forward, spilling its contents onto the boy's uniform. The hot liquid seeped into the fabric, and his notebook slipped from his hands, landing in the growing puddle of coffee. The boy gasped, his eyes welling with tears, not from the heat, but from the sight of his ruined autograph. Oops, the red-haired biker said mockingly. Guess you should have kept your mouth shut, kid. The cafe fell silent. The weight of what had just happened hung in the air like a brewing storm. Tyson exhaled slowly, his calm demeanor shifting. He stood up, his piercing gaze locking onto the red-haired biker. That's enough. The room held its breath. The bikers exchanged glances, their cocky grins faltering for the first time. Then the leader smirked. "Oh yeah? And what are you going to do about it?" Tyson didn't answer immediately. He reached down, carefully picking up the boy's ruined notebook, placing it on a dry part of the table. Then he turned, facing them fully. The air changed. The storm was coming. Subscribe to the channel, share the video, and write in the comments what city you were from. The cafe, once filled with the soft hum of morning routine, now stood in uneasy silence. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. The 5 bikers loomed over Mike Tyson's table, their presence suffocating. The young boy, his uniform stained with coffee, stood frozen, his lower lip trembling as he stared at his ruined notebook. The laughter from the bikers echoed through the small space, their cruel amusement making every other customer in the cafe shrink back into their seats. Tyson remained still, his eyes locked on the red-haired biker who had spilled the coffee. His stance was relaxed, his shoulders loose, but there was an unmistakable shift in his aura. The trained eye would recognize it, the transition from passive to ready. The bikers, however, mistook his calm for hesitation. The leader of the group, the one with the skull tattoo on his neck, took a slow step forward, the smirk on his face growing wider. "What's the matter, movie star? You upset about your little fan?" His voice dripped with mockery, his eyes daring Tyson to react. Tyson exhaled slowly, his fingers brushing the edge of the soaked notebook before setting it carefully on the table. His movements were deliberate, measured. Every instinct in his body told him this wouldn't end with words. The bikers weren't here to talk. They had walked in looking for a target, and now they thought they had found one. The young boy swallowed hard, his fists clenched at his sides. "You're just a bunch of bullies," he said, his voice small but firm. The red-haired biker let out a laugh, shaking his head. "Bullies, sweetheart. This is just a little fun." He turned back to Tyson, his expression darkening. "But you don't seem like you're having fun." Tyson tilted his head slightly, his gaze steady. "I don't like wasting time." The biker leader chuckled. "That's funny. Neither do we." It happened fast. The red-haired biker lunged first, his fist cutting through the air in a wide, reckless swing aimed at Tyson's face. But Tyson had already moved. His body shifted slightly to the side, the punch missing him by mere inches. In the same motion, he drove a sharp elbow into the biker's ribs. The impact sent a short, painful grunt through the man's clenched teeth. Before the biker could react, Tyson followed up with a precise strike to his jaw, sending him stumbling backward into the nearest table, knocking over chairs as he crashed to the floor. The cafe erupted into chaos. But before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. The second biker, a stocky man with tattoos creeping up his arms, grabbed a chair and swung it high above his head, aiming to bring it crashing down on Mike Tyson. But Tyson was faster. He stepped forward, closing the distance before the chair could descend, and delivered a brutal kick to the man's knee. The joint buckled with a sickening pop, and the biker collapsed, howling in pain. The leader with the skull tattoo reacted next, reaching for a chain that hung from his belt. He swung it in a wide arc, the metal links cutting through the air with a sharp whistle. Tyson didn't step back. He stepped in, timing the movement perfectly. He caught the chain mid-swing with one hand and yanked, using the biker's own momentum to pull him forward. With a controlled twist, Tyson drove his free elbow into the man's sternum, knocking the wind out of him, and sent him reeling with a well-placed strike to the jaw. The remaining 2 bikers hesitated. One of them, a wiry man with a scar running down his cheek, cursed under his breath. "Son of a..." He charged forward, fist cocked back for a heavy punch. Tyson waited until the last second, then sidestepped, guiding the biker's momentum past him with a subtle nudge. The man's own force sent him hurtling toward the counter, where he collided hard, sending cups and plates crashing to the floor. The final biker, a burly man with a thick beard, grabbed a glass bottle from a nearby table. His grip was tight, his knuckles white with anger. "You think you're tough?" he snarled, raising the bottle high above his head. Tyson shook his head, his voice calm. "Don't." The biker ignored the warning. He swung. Tyson moved. His hand shot up, catching the biker's wrist before the bottle could complete its arc. In a single fluid motion, he twisted sharply. The bottle slipped from the man's grasp, shattering harmlessly against the floor. Tyson didn't give him time to recover. A swift, controlled strike to the throat made the biker gag, and a follow-up knee to the stomach sent him crashing backward. Then silence. The cafe was a wreck. Tables overturned, shattered glass littering the floor, chairs knocked out of place. The scent of spilled coffee mingled with the lingering tension in the air. The bikers lay groaning on the ground, some clutching their ribs, others barely moving. Tyson exhaled, rolling his shoulders. His heart rate hadn't even spiked. The young boy was still standing, his wide eyes darting between Tyson and the defeated bikers. He looked down at his ruined notebook, then back up at Tyson. That was... He trailed off, searching for the right word. Tyson glanced at him. "You okay?" The boy nodded quickly. "Yeah, that was amazing." The other customers, who had been frozen in fear or hiding behind the counter, slowly began to move. Whispers filled the cafe, some in awe, others in disbelief. A few pulled out their phones, no doubt recording the aftermath. The cafe manager, a middle-aged woman who had been cowering behind the register, cautiously stepped forward. Her hands trembled as she surveyed the damage. I don't even know what to say." Tyson simply nodded. "Glad no one got hurt." But it wasn't over. A distant sound cut through the stunned silence, the unmistakable wail of approaching police sirens. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe for more. Check out our other videos for more amazing content. And don't forget to share this video with your friends. The bikers stirred at the noise, their leader clutching his jaw as he glared at Mike Tyson with hate-filled eyes. "This isn't over," he spat, his voice thick with humiliation. Tyson met his gaze without flinching. "Oh, it is." The police burst through the door moments later, weapons drawn, as they took in the scene. Officers quickly moved in, assessing the situation before restraining the downed bikers. One officer approached Tyson, his expression tense. "Mr. Tyson, do you want to press charges?" Tyson glanced at the beaten men on the floor, then shook his head. "No need. They already got what they deserved." The officer hesitated before nodding. "Understood. We'll take it from here." The bikers were hauled to their feet, their movements sluggish with pain, as they were led out. The leader threw one last glare over his shoulder. "You'll pay for this," he growled. Tyson tilted his head slightly. "You already did." The young boy watched as the last of the bikers was dragged out. His grip on his notebook loosened slightly. Tyson turned to him, crouching slightly so they were eye level. "You did good," he told him. The boy frowned. "I didn't do anything." Tyson shook his head. "You stood up to them. That takes more courage than you think." The boy bit his lip, glancing at his ruined notebook. Tyson reached into his bag, pulling out a fresh one. He flipped to the first page and scribbled something down, before handing it to him. "For the bravest person in the room." The boy's eyes widened as he read the message, his face lighting up with gratitude. "Thank you, Mr. Tyson." Tyson smiled slightly. "Call me Mike." The cafe had begun to settle, customers slowly returning to their seats, murmuring amongst themselves. The manager offered Tyson free coffee for life, but he simply chuckled, shaking his head. "I'll keep that in mind." He turned to leave, tipping his cap at the boy, before stepping outside into the bright morning sun. But something felt off. A strange sensation crawled up his spine. Honed by years of experience, someone was watching him. And this wasn't over. The moment Mike Tyson stepped outside, the crisp morning air felt different. The sounds of the city were returning. Car engines, distant conversations, the rustling of early commuters. But beneath it all was something else. A sensation, subtle yet undeniable, crawled up his spine like an instinct honed through years of experience. He had felt it before, the presence of eyes watching, the weight of attention that wasn't meant to be seen. He walked down the sidewalk at a steady pace, his posture relaxed, but his senses alert. His shadow stretched along the pavement as the sun climbed higher. The feeling of being followed wasn't paranoia. It was real. He caught glimpses in reflective surfaces, a shop window, the side mirror of a parked car, two figures lingering behind, their movement too calculated to be casual. Tyson didn't react, didn't break stride. Let them think they had the upper hand. The streets were waking up, more people appearing on the sidewalks, but Tyson knew what was coming. The bikers weren't the type to let humiliation go unanswered. The leader's final words in the cafe hadn't been empty threats. This wasn't over. They were waiting for an opportunity, away from cameras, away from witnesses, and they thought they had found it. The story of Mike Tyson's encounter with the bikers offers timeless lessons on courage, resilience, and standing up for what's right. It teaches us that true strength lies not just in physical power, but in protecting others and doing what is morally correct, even when faced with intimidation. The young boy's bravery reminds us that speaking out against injustice, no matter how small our voice may seem, can inspire change. Additionally, Tyson's calm under pressure highlights the importance of self-control and preparation in navigating life's challenges. In today's world, these values encourage us to confront adversity with dignity, support those who cannot defend themselves, and always strive to be a source of positivity and strength within our communities. This story is entirely fictional, crafted to inspire and entertain. Grateful to have you here. Which part of the world are you watching from? And please leave your thoughts on the message I want to convey.
If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe Undercover Insights channel.